I need you to pay attention, because I don't have much time. We did a video on Spider-Man. You're about to watch it. And we talked about how Spider-Man and Sony, like, and Marvel, they had like this whole like disconnect thing. It's not true. It's not true anymore. Spider-Man's back. He's back. He's back.
Let's move away from lies and fears. Perhaps it's time to leave. Free from how you look or what they say. Like a lion runs wild through the wilderness. Free from showing off a living faith. Like the eagles flying high, sing with the air. There's breath in your lungs to breathe. Say, God, take this mask away. You see, he won't let you stay. Living in hollow days.
Yeah, Spider-Man, MCU, Sony, that whole kerfluffle.
Kerfluffle. I like that word.
We're pretty
Thank
sad.
you. I just decided to use it.
Good job.
How do you feel about that, Derek? Also, welcome.
Yes.
Welcome to this week's episode
As
of
you can
ShatterCast.
see, we are distressed,
We're very sad at heart.
but welcome.
Yeah. So all this stuff has been breaking the last couple of months. We don't know all the details. From what we know, of course, Marvel made a deal with Sony to get permission to use Spider-Man in their movies and stuff like that. And Marvel was creatively helping Sony in their Far From Home, Homecoming movies, all that stuff. So, yeah. And then this summer, we found out that that deal has ended and there were some negotiations going on. And it looks like that fell through. So, it seems to me, I think there's blame on both sides. I think PR-wise, Marvel was definitely coming on top. A lot of fans were not happy with Sony. Sony doesn't have the best track record with Spider-Man, so definitely understand that. Again, this is just rumors that we heard. We heard like the original deal that Marvel had was like 5% of box
Profit
office.
share, yeah,
They got all the merchandise.
But they got all the merchandising. And then we heard that Marvel was trying to renegotiate at maybe 50%, which sounded too much. And somehow it all fell through. The company line from Sony was that Kevin Feige, who's been doing all this stuff with Marvel, might be too busy. That sounded like just an excuse.
With Fox and the X-Men getting all that, he's going to have more of his focus on that.
Yeah.
So he's not going to have time for Spider-Man, but...
Kevin's done 22 movies. I think he could handle it.
I think he
so. So I don't really believe that from Sony. In all honesty, with Marvel and Disney, I don't think they're squeaky clean either. I'm wondering if they're trying to push for a little too
mouse,
much.
man. That mouse.
You know, it's the mouse.
They're eating everything.
The mouse is taking over.
So that leads us to where we are now. So Spider-Man's out of the MCU. Yeah, how do we feel about that?
Pretty crummy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sad, heartbroken.
I'm hoping that they...
Hoping this is all a dream.
Can I be a little condescending?
Sure.
I'm hoping that they put on their big boy pants and learn how to act like adults.
There you go.
I mean, when you're dealing with people's livelihood, which they're for-profit businesses, so money is a big deal for them. I get it. And as a fan, they don't owe anything to me. Like, Marvel doesn't owe me a third Spider-Man movie. Sony doesn't owe me a good Spider-Man movie. But I'd like it, you know. But we're not. I think that's one thing that I think I would love for Marvel and Sony to be able to sit at a table long enough to come to an agreement of something they're both okay with. I feel like it's easy to just get angry and walk away.
Yeah.
But also as fans, I want to caution us against being entitled. Because we're not entitled to anything. Everything they give to us is a gift we have to pay for, but a gift nonetheless because we can choose not to pay for it and just never consume the content. But they're creating something that we enjoy, and in return, we give them money so they can put food on the table. If they decide no longer to provide that thing to us, we're not entitled to it, you know. And there's grief there because I love what they're doing with Spider-Man, but I'm not entitled to another Spider-Man movie. So like I'm disappointed, but it doesn't ruin my day because you know these things happen.
Yeah.
It's a franchise movie. It's
How do you feel about it, Brian?
confused. I don't know. I mean, there was different rumors going around for a while. At first there was like you said, the 50-50. Then at one point people are trying to say, oh, they're gonna have it all like 75-25 is what they were talking, I think.
70-30, I think.
70-30,
Something right
something
around
like
there.
that.
I don't know.
And then they were like, there's going to be like Venom in the MCU and like everything that everyone's wanted. So they were trying to say that that's going to happen. I mean,
I think they said Deadpool's going to be in the next Avengers movie.
I don't even know now. It's a possibility since Disney has bought
I mean,
X-Men.
Everything.
I understand why Sony is so strong because, like, that's the only thing they have.
Yeah.
Disney has all of Marvel, like the Muppets, Star Wars, the list goes on. They have everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, Sony is going to be a little stingy with that because that's their baby.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I like the word you use. I'm disappointed. I'm not distraught. It's. I was amazed that the deal happened in the first place. For two big studios to come together to share a character like that was amazing. And we just need to remember, for everyone who's jumping on Sony and yelling at them, Sony owns Spider-Man. You know, Marvel Comics was going through a hard time. They sold out the movie rights to Sony, and it kind of helped keep them afloat. So Sony owns the character, and they have the right to do what they want. I was excited that they partnered with Marvel because Marvel has a great way of understanding their characters and the creativity that came with. And Tom Holland, I think, is the best Spider-Man we've had. Sorry, love everyone else, but he's great. And I'm not sure if Sony was in charge of casting or Marvel, but that was great casting. So, and to have Spider-Man interact with the Avengers, interact with all the superheroes is great. And to see the Spider-Man movies where there's cameos where like Captain America shows up in gym class on the videos, like that stuff is fun. So all that stuff I enjoy. I feel after the second Spider-Man movie, Far From Home, I thought they wrapped up all the Marvel Universe stuff well enough that I do think Spider-Man is fine on his own. I'm going to miss some of those cameos, but it could be fine. So
the rumors are that Tom Holland is still going to be portraying. It's just that Sony is going to take full creative control.
I think
and not Marvel.
that's the answer that I want black and white is Tom Holland going to be locked into a non-compete with Marvel? And I don't know what they would do if they had something like that. I'm guessing they don't. But if they did, what would he even be able to do with Sony? But again, I don't feel like they could do that because Tom Holland was their joint between the two. So I doubt he really had something like that for either one.
Mom-parent divorce.
It's kind of sad. I think the last reports, Tom Holland will continue with Spider-Man, and Sony's just going to do their stuff. And they are riding high. The Spider-Man movies have done great. Venom did great. I know there were many people who liked that movie. I wasn't the biggest fan, but hey, it did great.
I like it. It's
good.
It's good.
Right here. There we go. Into Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse did really well for them. So Sony's riding a high. So I think that's why Sony came into this willing to negotiate, but didn't want to give too much. So I at the end of the day, that's business stuff. I think it's sad for the split, but as long as we still get Tom Holland as Spider-Man,
well, when the next movie comes out, we'll see how much was Spider-Man relying on the creativity of Marvel and how much was it relying on Sony. Because at the end of the day, like you were saying, we could end up with a fantastic Spider-Man 3 created by Sony, because Sony hasn't created terrible Spider-Man movies. Like Tobey Maguire,
1 and 2 were good.
1 and 2 were good. 3 wasn't so great. Andrew Garfield, I didn't mind either movie. I thought they were both good movies.
The first one was good. Second one was.
I wouldn't say either one was great, but I would say like I don't own either of them, but I don't regret having seen them.
Yeah.
Right. And so the standalone Spider-Man movies, the first one had a lot of Marvel wrapped into it. The second one had a lot less, in my opinion, storyline wise. I mean, you had obviously like the S.H.I.E.L.D. people there, but a lot more of it was MJ and Peter Parker himself and Aunt May and just the core characters. And so if they're able to lean on that and keep the humor and everything else, I think it's going to be okay.
Do you think they purposely did it that way so they were kind of preparing for the split?
That'd be really interesting.
Possibly. I think they knew when the deal was going to end. I think
Yeah.
they knew.
And just that it probably
So,
wasn't going
like-
to get re-upped after
Yeah.
the second movie.
Just in case they were like, let's somehow
Dial back some of the references to the Marvel cinematic universe.
Yeah.
somehow tie the knot of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And I think you bring up a great point, John. I think that's my greatest fear. They've hit Spider-Man so well creatively. Can they do that without Marvel? We'll see. Hopefully they can. So.
Well, Happy's going to marry Aunt May. They're
Happy's
going
not
to
going to be.
Well, Happy is going to be sad.
Happy's gonna be
and they're
sad.
going to adopt Peter, so it's no longer Aunt May, but Mom. And then he is going to go into hiding because Spider-Man was revealed. And the third movie by Marvel is actually going to be about Night Monkey.
You heard it here first.
Night
Exclusive.
We can do it.
yes.
We have the technology.
So that's our thoughts on Spider-Man. Just to get to our faith point real fast. When this news broke, people were taking sides. Some were like, Team Marvel, Sony, you're horrible. How could you do this? I think that's where most of the people were.
Right. I was actually on the other hand. I was kind of like
Really?
Marvel. Like, come
Being
on.
a little greedy.
Yeah, being
I
greedy.
agree, James. Well.
Yeah.
I think kind of our thoughts are we don't know what happened. We don't know what the deals were. We don't know what's happened behind the scenes business wise. We just want good movies. But it kind of made us think, even in our own lives, we might hear people who are breaking up, or we might hear fights at work or at school, and instantly people are like trying to take sides. And I think we need to be careful about that, especially as Christians. The Bible has a lot of concerns and warnings to us, about being careful how we go into an argument, or if we should even be involved. Jesus has this huge thing he says in the Bible. He says, "Don't judge, or you too will be judged. For the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And the same measure you use is the measure that will be used upon you." And people use that "don't judge" very broadly. I think what Jesus is saying, be careful of making assumptions about other people. You don't know their story. You don't know their history. You don't know what's going on. And oftentimes the way that you are pointing out bad things in other people's lives, you actually do that yourself. We're talking about these are companies being greedy or whatever. Hey, we can be greedy in our own lives. We can have those same motivations where we want, and we're not thinking about the impact on other people. And so what do you guys think about just this idea of like, when an argument happens, people instantly jump in and take sides? What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like that's kind of human nature to kind of take sides because we want to like be on the winning team and be like, I feel like this person's right, but then this person has this. But For King and Country has a beautiful song called God Only Knows. And the lyrics are, God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. God only knows what's killing you, but then there's a kind of love that God only knows. So God is the only one that can really judge you for those kind of things, and you can't be that person to take that away from someone. That's great.
It's like YOLO, right?
YOLO.
You only live once, and it became this big meme. And everyone, they doing stupid stuff and be like, haha, YOLO, right? But for me, YOLO is just like our generation's carpe diem, and it can be used to be like, you know what, you only live once. So do the right thing, do good things, and do things that matter, things that are lasting. And so when I
Not a
think
reason to do stupid things.
Exactly. Instead of an excuse to do dumb things, make good decisions. And I think about, we can use that same mentality for the phrase, only God can judge me. Because a lot of people use that to excuse terrible behavior. But we can use that to comfort ourselves when someone comes at us and we know that they're wrong and we know that they don't know our heart. And they're not going to change their mind about what they think they see. And instead, comforting ourselves and saying, you know what? I can't change their mind because we don't have the power to really change people. Like, that's something that God does. It's something the Holy Spirit does. But I know that God can judge my heart. I know that God knows me. And that should be the only thing I care about. I shouldn't care how people view me. It doesn't, like, I should be aware of how I'm being perceived. And if there's something I can do better, I should do better. But at the end of the day, the only one whose approval I need and should strive for is God's. And if I'm, an arrogant jerk and greedy, and other people are judging me for it, and I'm like, well, only God can judge me. Well, he's probably judging me too if I'm an arrogant, greedy jerk.
Yeah, I love that point. David in the Bible says, "God, judge my heart." Like I don't even want to be my own judge because I know I can deceive myself. Like I need you to tell me what I'm doing is right and what I'm doing is wrong, and guide me. And when Jesus says, "Don't judge," let's put that on the table a little bit. We're allowed to judge actions. We can say, hey, that behavior is not good. That's not godly. What Jesus is talking about, don't judge people's hearts. Again, we can't see inside someone's motives, and we can't see their relationship with God. That is ultimately for God to do. So I think a lot of times when arguments break out, things like that, we need to be very slow to speak, as the Bible says, and be very careful about taking sides, and also be careful even in our own minds and hearts about judging other people. A lot of times we can have inner dialogue when someone goes through a difficult time or whatever. We're like, well, they deserve that or whatever. We don't know their story. And I think especially as Christians, we need to be careful of that. As Christians, we need to always be there offering kindness, guidance, wisdom. But ultimately, it's God who judges people's hearts and their intentions. We can speak into people's lives as far as behaviors or actions that might be dangerous, but we get into very bad categories, very bad situations when we go beyond that.
Yeah. I don't have anything to add. I think you nailed it on the head.
Yeah, awesome. So this whole situation, Spider-Man, we're going to miss you in the MCU. Maybe one day you'll be back, but we hope you can still do some great movies, Tom Holland as Spider-Man. And we'll see what happens.
We enjoyed what was able to come, and we can't wait for the future.
There we go. Thank you for enjoying what we've done and waiting for the future.
Don't judge us.
Don't judge me. Don't judge me. I get enough of that from myself. See you next week.
Thanks, guys.
So what did Peter Parker have to get for employment when he was fired by Marvel? He worked as a web designer.
Didn't you already do that for the homecoming joke?
Was web designer the joke I used last time?
He's a web designer.
It doesn't get any better, folks. All right.